Clone Wars was a Mandalorian civil war, not a metaphor or a parallel, the actual war, the one the Jedi thought they understood. Strip the Republic and Separatist paint off the outside and look what's underneath. The Republic's army is grown from a Mandalorian Foundling space. The Separatist ground operation on Mandalore is run by a Mandalorian extremist faction with Count Dooku on the other end of the hologram. The one planet important enough to pull the Sith Master off his throne and onto a shuttle is Mandalore. One man placed all those pieces. He tells Obi-Wan exactly how to his face in a prison cell on Geonosis, and the Jedi Council hears the confession and throws it in the trash. And here's the part that should keep you up at night. 20 years later, a Disney Plus show introduces a bounty hunter and Beskar armor who never removes his helmet, Din Djarin, the hero of the streaming era, a man raised in a creed that descends directly from the Mandalorian faction Dooku backed during the war. He walks into Chapter 1 of The Mandalorian wearing the helmet of the losing side, and he never finds out. And so there's a moment in Attack of the Clones where a classroom of 8-year-old Jedi younglings solves the mystery faster than Yoda does. A kid looks up at the holographic star map, shrugs, and says the thing that breaks the entire movie open.
Because someone erased it from the archive memory.
Someone inside the Order walked into the most secure information vault in the Republic and deleted a planet. For 20 years, that was the unsolved question. Somebody erased a planet. Somebody commissioned a clone army. The Jedi Council never figured out who. We do. The movie names him in its final 5 minutes, and in 2022, a Disney Plus animated series walks back into that library and shows him doing it. The Jedi in Attack of the Clones never figure out who played them, but by the end of this video, you will have. Obi-Wan is hunting a bounty hunter. He recovers a toxic dart fired into the neck of an accomplice before she can talk. He traces the dart to Kamino, a planet that according to the Jedi archives doesn't exist. So he walks into the archives and asks Jocasta Nu about it.
If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
Think about that for a second. The entire Order treats its information system as authoritative. If it's not in the archive, it's not real. A whole civilization's way of knowing built on a database that one council-level credential could walk into and edit. Hold on to that because it's going to matter. Obi-Wan then takes the problem to Yoda. They pull up the star map and look at the empty space.
Gravity's silhouette remains, but the star and all the planets disappeared, they have.
The gravity is still pulling, the mass is still there, but the record is gone. A kid spots it before the Grand Master does, and Yoda, staring at the hole in his own archive, delivers the line that frames the entire trilogy.
Only a Jedi could have erased those files. But who and why? Harder to answer.
For 20 years, the who and why was the mystery. Then in 2022, Tales of the Jedi aired, Season 1, Episode 4, The Sith Lord, and we finally watched the answer. Count Dooku sits down at a terminal in the Jedi archives. He enters the login credentials of Master Sifo-dyas, the Jedi Master he murdered before the film started. He pulls up Kamino, he deletes it, one planet, one file, and one session on a dead colleague's account. And that's the whole crime. That's what Yoda was looking at. Now, you might say, okay, fine, the Sith erased a clone factory, so what? Why does Dooku personally, at council level, go to the library to delete this specific planet using this specific murdered Jedi's credentials? If Kamino was just Palpatine's generic clone factory, you delegate this, you don't handle it yourself. But the episode shows you why. The archive deletion isn't the climax of the episode, it's the setup for a murder. Master Yaddle follows Dooku from the temple to a meeting in the Works District and walks in on him conferring with Darth Sidious. She never mentions the archive. She confronts him about what she just watched him be, a Sith.
No, this ends here, Sith Lord.
She pleads with Dooku. She reminds him the council should have listened. She tells him Qui-Gon Jinn didn't have to die. Sidious orders Dooku to prove his loyalty by killing her, and Dooku does. But here's the thing. Yaddle dies without ever saying the word Kamino. The archive deletion stays unwitnessed. Dooku kills a Jedi Master to keep a Sith secret, and the Kamino deletion stays buried. One crime hides the other. He fingerprints the library with a dead man's hand, and then he murders the only Jedi who could have asked why. And that's the shape of the cover-up. One man, one credential, one library, and one body. Now, let's find out whose face is on the merchandise. Obi-Wan lands on Kamino. Taun We welcomes him like they've been waiting.
Master Jedi,
The Prime Minister is expecting you.
Expecting him, an unannounced Jedi arriving at a planet the Jedi archives deny exists, is greeted as a long-anticipated guest. Somebody told Kamino the Jedi would eventually come. And there's also a line in the revised third draft shooting script cut from the final film that makes this point explicit. We have kept the Jedi's involvement a secret until your arrival, just as your master requested. In the final film, Lucas covers the same ground with Prime Minister Lama Su's reveal. Obi-Wan asks when the army was ordered.
And now to business. 200,000 units are ready, with 1 million more well on the way. Please tell your master, Sifo-dyas, that his order will be met on time.
Master Sifo-dyas was killed almost 10 years ago.
And Obi-Wan learns the commission was placed 10 years ago, under a Jedi name by a man who has since been killed. We later find out that he was killed on Dooku's orders. Dooku murders the Jedi who supposedly placed the order. Dooku then uses the same Jedi's credentials to delete the planet where the order was fulfilled. One man, one fingerprint, rubbed off into 2 different places. And then Obi-Wan meets the Template, a human bounty hunter named Jango Fett, and Obi-Wan asks him who recruited him.
I was recruited by a man called Tyrannus on one of the moons of bo-katan.
A man called Tyrannus. Obi-Wan logs it and moves on. The audience is supposed to log it and wait, because several minutes of screen time later, we're going to hear that name again. But before we get that payoff, sit with who Jango is. He's a Mandalorian. Not by armor alone, but by lineage. In Chapter 14 of The Mandalorian, Boba Fett sits across from Din Djarin and says it on screen.
Your father was a Foundling.
Yes, he even fought in the Mandalorian civil wars.
That line is doing a lot of work. Foundling is the Mandalorian adoption tradition. A child taken in, raised in the creed, and treated as family. Jango Fett wasn't a mercenary who bought armor. He was a Mandalorian by adoption, raised into the tradition, who fought inside a Mandalorian war, and he fought in it on the losing side. In 2019, Marvel published a canon one-shot called Age of Republic: Jango Fett. The issue, written by Jody Houser, depicts the moon of Bogdan meeting directly. We watch Dooku, as Tyrannus, approach Jango and make the offer. Dooku's pitch isn't, "you are a generic human with combat skills." The pitch, canonically, hinges on Jango's humanity and on his particular record as a survivor of the Mandalorian Wars. A Sith Lord doesn't fly to a moon of Bogdan to hire a generic human, he flies there to hire this one. There's a Legends version of this backstory that adds a layer of symmetry so good I wish it were canon. It isn't under Disney's 2014 reset, but what is canon is devastating enough on its own. Dooku, as Tyrannus, walks up to the last known free Mandalorian bounty hunter and buys his genome to grow the Republic's army. Same man, 2 identities, 1 line going into the Mandalorian history, 1 line coming out of it. Now watch what happens at Kamino right after the offer is accepted. Lama Su tells Obi-Wan something that only makes sense if the Template's identity mattered.
And where is this bounty hunter now?
Oh, we keep him here. Fett demanded only one thing, an unaltered clone for himself. Curious, isn't it?
Unaltered. Every other clone is engineered for obedience and accelerated growth. Jango asks for one exception, a natural son with no modifications, and that son's name is Boba. Boba is the only clone who inherits Jango's culture. Every other clone wears the face, but not the lineage. The template is Mandalorian. The product is a stripped-down copy with independence engineered out and obedience engineered in. Now, to be clear, the clones never take the creed. They aren't Mandalorian in spirit, but every clone wears a Mandalorian foundling's face. Every Republic Marine in the Clone Wars is a bioengineered copy of a man who fought in the Mandalorian civil wars on the losing side. That's the Republic's half of the army. There's also a cut line in the shooting script that Lucas filmed and then didn't use, and it tightens the frame even further. Lama Su said, "We felt a Jedi would be the perfect choice, but Sifo-dyas handpicked Jango himself. The Kaminoans expected a Jedi template, but they were overruled. Sifo-dyas specifically requested a Mandalorian bounty hunter instead, except Sifo-dyas didn't actually make that request. Dooku did, wearing Sifo-dyas' credentials like he'd wear them again in the archive deletion a few years later. The Mandalorian template isn't a quirk, it's a Sith choice made under a dead Jedi's name, hidden under a deleted planet. That's half the war, the Republic's half, but the other half isn't droids." Here's the thing about the Separatist war effort. On most worlds, it's battle droids and Trade Federation tanks, but on Mandalore, the Separatist ground operation has a face, and a name, and a political party, and the person running it from orbit is Count Dooku. In the Clone Wars Season 2, Episode 12, The Mandalore Plot, we are on Concordia, a moon of Mandalore. A Mandalorian extremist faction called Death Watch, led by Governor Pre Vizsla, is coordinating on hologram with a Separatist patron. The patron is Dooku, and the hologram scene lays it out. Dooku tells Vizsla that once the Senate orders peacekeeping troops to Mandalore, the people will rebel, and Vizsla responds,
"And rally to Death Watch. Our insurgency will grow stronger."
That's the play. Duchess Satine is the head of the Council of Neutral Systems, a block of roughly 1,500 worlds that refuse to join the Republic or the Separatists. Satine's Mandalore is the most prominent neutral government in the galaxy, and the Separatist play isn't to conquer Mandalore, but to flip it. Destabilize the neutral region from the inside using a dissident Mandalorian faction. And the Sith Lord on the other end of the hologram is the same Sith Lord who hired Jango on Bogdan. Now, a careful fan might push back here, and I want to meet the pushback head on. Now, Dooku doesn't personally arm Death Watch in the sense of shipping them crates or Separatist blasters. The on-screen evidence is a bit softer than that. But what we see is Dooku backing Death Watch politically and strategically, coordinating their operations against the neutral government, promising them a restored warrior Mandalore in exchange for their service. Weapons production is viable in the Concordian mines. Direct Separatist shipments aren't shown. Backed and coordinated is what the text supports. Armed is what sort of rhymes with it. The weaker verb is still decisive because the story isn't that Dooku sold guns to extremists, the story is that Dooku picked which Mandalorian faction got to win. On one end of the Republic's genome chain, the Mandalorian Foundling. On the other end of the Separatist Mandalore operation, the Mandalorian extremist bloc. Same architect, both hands. And the StarWars.com databank, Lucasfilm's own official character database, describes the alliance bluntly. Backed by Count Dooku and the Separatists, Vizsla began building an army to retake Mandalore. When the coup became inopportune, Dooku abandoned them. 2 episodes later, Duchess of Mandalore, Satine makes a peace appeal to the Galactic Senate. The Senate debates military intervention. Dooku, from his side of the board, delivers this to Vizsla directly.
"With your Death Watch army in place, now all we need do is to sit and wait."
Your Death Watch army. Dooku is talking about a Mandalorian extremist faction as though it is a Separatist military asset, because in Dooku's operational picture, it is. The Separatist pressure on Mandalore isn't droid armies, it's a Mandalorian civil war, and Dooku is backing one side of it. And now the tell that makes this whole thesis unmissable. The Clone Wars Season 5, Episode 16, The Lawless. Maul has taken Mandalore. Sidious discovers that his former apprentice has carved out a criminal empire on a politically strategic world. Then Sidious does something he never does anywhere else in the entire 7-season run of the Clone Wars. He boards a ship. He leaves Coruscant. He travels to Mandalore personally to duel Maul. In 7 seasons of that show, across hundreds of episodes, this is the only time Sidious physically leaves Coruscant to fight someone. The only time. And the planet he leaves it for is Mandalore. Think about what that says about Mandalore's priority in the Sith operation. The Mustafar duel belongs to Vader. The Revenge of the Sith Senate duel stays on Coruscant. Grievous's abduction ship is above Coruscant. Only Mandalore pulls the Sith Master out of the chair. And when Maul tries to bargain with him there, Sidious answers in full.
"How unfortunate that you are attempting to deceive me.
Master?
You have become a rival."
A rival, not a rogue apprentice or a wild card, a rival. Mandalore is valuable enough that losing it to Maul is a power structure threat. The only time in 7 seasons the Emperor leaves his capital to fight lines up with the only Mandalorian operation in his war that he can't control through Dooku. Now, fast forward to 2020, The Mandalorian Chapter 11, The Heiress. Bo-Katan tells Din Djarin where his own creed comes from.
"You are a child of the Watch. Children of the Watch are a cult of religious zealots that broke away from Mandalorian society. Their goal was to reestablish the ancient way."
Broke away from the Mandalorian society, and Bo-Katan would know. She was Death Watch. She stood next to Pre Vizsla on Concordia when Dooku was on the hologram. She split from Vizsla only after Maul killed him and took the Darksaber. In Season 3, Chapter 23, The Spies, the Armorer's own group arrives on Mandalore's surface and a survivor asks them directly, "Are you Death Watch?" The armorer answers, "Death Watch exists no longer. It's shattered into many warring factions." She doesn't deny the lineage, she just deflects it into past tense, and the place she says her people hid after the shattering is Concordia, Death Watch's base, the same moon where Dooku's hologram lit up the war room. The children of the Watch wear the Shriek Hawk sigil of Clan Vizsla. One of their senior warriors is named Paz Vizsla. The canon reference book Star Wars 100 Objects states it outright. Most survivors of the Night of a Thousand Tears were descendants of Death Watch. Din Djarin, the hero of the Disney Plus era, the man we've been watching for 3 seasons, is a theological descendant of the Mandalorian faction Dooku backed at Concordia. The Clone Wars is Jango's people on one side and Vizsla's people on the other, with Dooku running both ends of the board, and the last breathing remnant of that whole operation walks into Chapter 1 of The Mandalorian wearing the helmet of the losing faction and never knowing it. That's 3 operations. The Republic genome chain is Mandalorian Foundling, the Separatist ground operation is Mandalorian extremist faction, and the only personally executed Sith deployment of the entire Clone Wars was Mandalore. Same architect on all 3, and he's about to tell Obi-Wan. Okay, let's go back to Geonosis. Obi-Wan is chained to a stone column. Dooku walks in, the picture of aristocratic concern.
"It's a great pity that our paths have never crossed before, Obi-Wan. Qui-Gon always spoke very highly of you."
And Dooku pretends to be a sympathetic ex-Jedi. He offers Obi-Wan help, and then he says something that, if the Jedi Council had believed it, would have ended the war before it started.
"What if I told you that the Republic was now under the control of the Dark Lord of the Sith? Hundreds of senators are now under the influence of a Sith Lord called Darth Sidious. The Viceroy of the Trade Federation was once in league with this Darth Sidious, but he was betrayed 10 years ago by the Dark Lord. He came to me for help. He told me everything. You must join me, Obi-Wan, and together we will destroy the Sith."
Now, this is where the draft I'm working from needed a correction, and it's worth doing on camera, so it's tempting to run this speech like deposition testimony, but it isn't. This is a Sith Lord telling a truth inside a lie. The truth is the Republic really is under Sith control. Hundreds of senators really are compromised. Newt Gunray really was in business with Sidious during the Naboo blockade. But the lie is the betrayal. Gunray wasn't tragically burned by Sidious. Gunray got arrested by Republic forces at Naboo. Sidious stepped back, Gunray did some time and a lot of appeals, and by Attack of the Clones he's sitting on Dooku's own Separatist council. He never left the Sith orbit. Dooku is dressing up a slap on the wrist as a betrayal so the wronged victim coming for revenge story lands cleaner with Obi-Wan. So why tell Obi-Wan the truth about Sidious at all? Because Dooku, Lord Tyrannus, apprenticed to the Sith Master the Jedi are actually looking for, gets to pose as the Sith Hunter inside the Republic. Dooku is laundering his own boss's identity while standing over the Jedi he just captured. The only person Obi-Wan can report this to is the Jedi Council, and Dooku already knows what the Council will do with it.
Do you believe what Count Dooku said about Sidious controlling the Senate? It doesn't feel right.
Join the dark side. Dooku has. Lies, deceit, creating mistrust are his ways now.
The Jedi Council just received through a captured Jedi a direct intelligence brief naming the exact Sith threat they will fail to stop. Yoda's response is to discredit the source. Yoda is a great Jedi. In this moment, he is exactly wrong. Dooku told the truth inside a lie. The Jedi can't separate the two, so they throw the whole thing out. The plan keeps moving. And then the film cuts to Coruscant. A Sith Lord lands on a balcony in a black cloak and bows to his master.
"The Force is with us, Master Sidious."
Welcome home, Lord Tyrannus. You have done well.
Tyrannus. That's the name Jango gave Obi-Wan on Kamino, the name of the man on the moons of Bogdan, the name of the man who ordered the Republic's clone army, the name that we now know from Tales of the Jedi of the man who sat down in the archives with sifo-dyas' login and erased the planet where that army was grown. All of those are the same man. All of that is Dooku, and the final scene of the film confirms it, on screen, in the theatrical cut, with an audible Lord Tyrannus from the Sith Master himself.
"I have good news for you, my lord. War has begun."
Excellent. Everything is going as planned.
Everything is going as planned. The war isn't an opportunity the Sith are improvising against, it's a delivery to schedule. Dooku is reporting on an op his master designed, the same way Lama Su an hour ago reported on the clones arriving to schedule. One architect, one timeline, and both sides of the war invoiced. The Jedi Council is staring at this mystery and saying out loud before sending their generals to lead an army they didn't commission.
Blind we are. With creation of this clone army, we could not see.
They weren't blind, they looked at every piece of evidence. Obi-Wan met Jango, Obi-Wan met Dooku, Obi-Wan heard the name Tyrannus, the Council heard sifo-dyas was already dead. Yoda himself identified that a Jedi had erased the archives. They had every piece of evidence they needed, they just refused to assemble them because the person who did it was one of them. And in Tales of the Jedi, we finally watched him at the terminal typing a dead colleague's password and deleting the planet. Then the film closes on Yoda delivering the line that, 20 years later, a Disney Plus series would expose as a confession of a confession.
Begun. The Clone War has
begun. Meaning delivered, meaning exactly what Lama Su meant when he said the Order arrived on time. So here is what the Clone Wars actually is, once you pull the Republic and Separatists paint off the outside. On the Republic side, an army bioengineered from a Mandalorian Foundling's face. On the Separatist side, a Mandalorian extremist faction backed by Dooku and used as a proxy army to destabilize the neutral government. And on the Sith side, a single Mandalorian-centered operation that's important enough to be the only reason Palpatine leaves Coruscant in 7 seasons of war. Scale all three up into a galactic conflict and you haven't built a Republic versus Separatist war, you've built a Mandalorian civil war, hidden under Republic and Separatist paint, with one architect working both sides and then erasing the paperwork from a Jedi Master's account on his way out. The Jedi never put it together. Yoda said a Jedi did it, and he was right. He just couldn't finish the sentence. But here's what stays with me. Death Watch collapses, Mandalore falls, the Empire burns the surface, the Night of 1,000 Tears turns the planet into glass, and somewhere in the wreckage, a splinter group crawls out of the ashes of Concordia. They call themselves the Children of the Watch. They say a creed that says you never remove your helmet. They adopt foundlings. They disappear into the galaxy's margins, and one of the foundlings grows up to become the most famous Mandalorian in the streaming era. Din Djarin never learns any of this. He never finds out that his creed descends from the faction of a Sith Lord backed as a proxy army. He never connects the dots between the Beskar on his body and the war that made the Mandalorians into pawns on both sides of the board. He never asks why his people lost because he never knew they were playing. He just puts on the helmet every morning, the helmet of a faction that was built to win a Sith Lord's war and got discarded when the war was over. That's the Clone Wars, a Mandalorian civil war scaled to the galaxy, designed by one man, fought on both sides by Mandalorian pieces, and forgotten by the last Mandalorian still standing in the armor. And thank you so much for watching, and click here where I prove the Joker actually won the Dark Knight, and everything you think you remember is a lie.